There's also the fact that can't be ignored in all of this. 3 weeks after the Benghazi Select Committee sent Clinton a subpoena in 2015 requesting that she turn over all emails related to the terror attack, an employee at the company that ran her server used bleach bit. You know, they acid washed her server in an effort to permanently erase emails on the server. Joining us now, he's been following this from the get-go, is former New York City mayor, former prosecutor, Rudy Giuliani. All right, where do you want to begin? Because you just heard James Comey admit that the standard in this case, which is negligent or grossly negligent, you don't even have to be negligent.
The definition of negligent, grossly negligent is extremely careless.
Okay.
So Jim Comey didn't choose those words idly. Those are the legal definition of what it means to be grossly negligent. So when he said that, he essentially said there was evidence to prove that she violated that statute. Also, the 4 or 5 times when he was answering Trey Gowdy's questions in which he pointed out that she lied to the FBI.
Isn't that a crime?
Every single one of them. That's what Martha Stewart went to jail for one of them.
And he admitted 5 specific lies.
5 specific lies, including one where
and multiple instances
1,000 work-related emails were found when she said that there were no work-related.
If I did this, would I be in jail?
Yeah, I'd be visiting you now somewhere in Dannemora, or
would you bring me a cake with a file?
I'd visit you, Sean. You know, it's one of the great works that Jesus asked us to do during the Beatitudes.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Visit the people in prison.
Let me ask you this, because they're saying today, and it broke after Comey made his remarks, they're saying, oh, this is related to Abedin and emails. No,
you know what this is related to?
What?
It's related to the fact that they did a completely irresponsible investigation of this case. If you read the 302 of her interview, it's absurd. The FBI agent doing that 302 didn't follow up on anything. You mentioned the C. He didn't follow up on that. He didn't ask the questions. Was there an A or a B or a D or an E or an F to find out if she's done
X, Y, Z? Yeah.
But she also said that she didn't remember her exit interview from the FBI because she had had a concussion and she had lost her memory. There are no questions following that which you would expect from an agent conducting an investigation.
She said she didn't remember being briefed about security, cybersecurity.
Yes, but no questions like, well, how long did you lose your memory? Where's the documentation for it? Let's look at the medical records. In other words, she was questioned as follows. Did you commit the murder? No. Thank you. And they walked out.
What about well, I don't necessarily know if it was technically immunity or a proffer arrangement, very limited in scope. But we know that there's a letter that was given. We don't even know if one was given to Abedin. We know that in the process, evidence was destroyed in this case by the FBI as part of a deal.
A tremendous amount of evidence was destroyed by the FBI, by the people working for her. They used extraordinary methods that only criminals use to destroy emails, acid, bleach. They used hammers to destroy.
Wait,
13.
She only used one. She only used one.
13.
She did this for convenience, but she had. I thought it was 14. Are you sure? I thought it was 14.
Well,
my recollection's 14.
Well, I remember 13. Let's say 14.
But they busted it with a hammer. But they took acid to wash.
How can they all be missing? They're all missing. They're all gone.
What about
It's hard
this?
to get rid of 14 or 13 cell phones.
I have a friend of mine who's a special agent in the FBI. I had a long conversation with him. He said every fellow agent is disgusted with the way James Comey has handled this. And here's what we also have discovered, that the guy, Andrew McCabe, who was promoted FBI deputy director, who supervised this particular investigation, that Governor Terry McAuliffe, one of the closest allies of the Clintons,
also the guy who was selling the Lincoln bedroom.
Right, that's the guy.
You know, a decade and a half ago.
Through his PAC Common Good, which Hillary raised money for, contributed, this is, again, a total now of up to $675,000 to her long-shot congressional bid. Most congressional bids don't spend $675,000. That's just one donation. And how could he possibly investigate with a conflict of interest like that?
Well, I get two stories out of the FBI, okay? One story is this came from the Weiner sex tapes, and it's about Uma Abedin, and did she send classified information to Weiner? If she did, by the way, that would be a clear-out crime. Let's see if she gets prosecuted.
Let me put up on the screen as you talk, by the way. You have identified on this program 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that about a year ago.
Yeah, this is what we've been showing you. These are the very specific things that you said back in the day ought to be investigated. These are real felonies, real crime. People have really gone to jail for all of these statutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reality is that the report that Comey gave to us before he came to the conclusion that she shouldn't be prosecuted was a report that any prosecutor would have taken before a grand jury, probably gotten an indictment, and the evidence of intent is overwhelming. The best evidence of intent are two things: false exculpatory statements. Well, she made at least a dozen of those, and you just showed them. The second best evidence of intent is destruction of evidence. Well, they were destroying evidence all over the place.
That's the intent to commit a crime.
Well, that's
how
I proved intent in the hundreds of cases that I prosecuted. And the reality is that the first FBI investigation was a sham. You don't interview somebody on a Saturday and put out a complete report on a Tuesday unless the report was written before you interviewed her.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask you, very specific, as we keep those laws up there. 18 U.S.C. 1924, unauthorized removal and retention of classified documents.
She did it.
Comey admits she did it.
She did it.
That's a crime.
Absolutely.
Okay, gathering, transmitting, or losing information, defense information. That's 18 U.S.C. 793.
Did that too.
Okay, by the way, imprisonment 10 years and or $250,000 fine. Concealment, removal, mutilation generally, 18 U.S.C. 2071. Yeah,
mutilation, bleach,
hammer.
Bleach,
hammer,
mutilation.
acid.
That's mutilation.
Okay.
Right.
Destruction, alteration, falsification of records in federal investigations.
Well, she did that too, and then I put a couple extra in, including interfering in an IRS investigation in which she called or went to Geneva to try to stop the IRS from getting the UBS secret identities of individuals.
Let me put up on what the wiki...
Straight-out violation of another 18 U.S. code and a quid pro quo for the $3 or $4 million they got from UBS.
Let me put up on the screen again the WikiLeaks revelation specific to the Clinton server. They knew. They knew from the beginning. Now, here's my theory. I think they used Uma Abedin and Anthony Weiner as an opportunity because the FBI, the Justice Department, the State Department, and the White House are scared to death because all of them colluded individually with the Clinton campaign and gave them all a heads up, and they all protected the president who was emailing on that very server and lied to the American people. True or false?
Looks that way. Looks that way. I mean, it looks like you have a massive conspiracy here. And this is almost now a truism, right? The cover-up is worse than the crime.
Just worse than Watergate. I got to run.
Although in this particular case, the crime was pretty bad, exposing national security information to countries that we know can take it from us like that.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for coming.
For that, you shouldn't be allowed to get off.
A lot more.